Hey guys, this is the Scholar General, Mojian Bing. So in today's video, I wanted to ask the question, what's the most important martial art in Chinese history? And my answer, I kind of gave it away already, but my answer is archery. Here I have a fiberglass Manchu style bow. It's a lot of fun to shoot, but I'm not making this video because I'm a super archer. It's actually the opposite of the truth. I'm not the best archer ever, for sure. I'm still working on it, but I think that there are 3 reasons why archery is the most important martial art in Chinese history. These points aren't in particular order of like strongest to weakest or anything. It's just like 3 good reasons why archery is the most important martial art in Chinese history. And the first one is manuals. In China, more manuals have been made about archery than pretty much any other weapon, and possibly more are manuals for archery than all the other weapons combined. It's just like a lot of ink and paper went into telling you and teaching people how to use the bow. This goes back all the way into the Bronze Age, where we have detailed accounts of crossbow use in the Wuye Chunqiu, and that's not exactly a manual in itself, it's just part of a larger text. But later on in texts, in official histories like the Han Shu, in the bibliography, we have these references to like a handful of archery manuals, and the amount of archery manuals just keeps increasing over time. And we get to like the Ming and Qing, and we just have dozens and dozens of them. Unfortunately, a lot of archery manuals in the past don't survive to today, but we do have references to lots of them in the sources of today. So we can tell that, they wrote about archery a lot. The second reason why archery is like super important, probably more important than other weapons, is because it was always considered like the highest military skill for a soldier to have was to be good at archery. This goes back at least into the Han Dynasty, where we can see texts like the Juyan Hantian, which is like these Han Dynasty bamboo slips from the Juyan region, which was on their far northwestern border out in the desert. And there were these like fortresses, and in the fortresses they kept a bunch of records about mundane daily tasks that the military has to do. And one of the more interesting things in those texts is the fact that officers had to be competent in archery. They were tested on it. And if they were good at it, if they were very proficient at it, they'd actually get a lot of extra days off and like have a vacation pretty much. So they really valued archery as, a good military skill. So in most later dynasties, the most highly paid, well-trained troops that the military would have would be horseback archers. And these guys didn't just do horseback archery, they were proficient with all kinds of weapons. But horseback archery was their main skill, and in military examinations and stuff, archery always took precedent and was like a super important part of, being a high-ranking soldier in the military. And even for soldiers that weren't as high-ranking, you have the crossbow, and crossbow proficiency was always something until later on it goes to firearms. But being proficient with a crossbow was always super emphasized, as well as, for the more elite troops, the horseback archery was super emphasized. The third reason why archery is probably the most important martial art in Chinese history is because the bow, unlike most other weapons, was accepted somewhat by the educated elite in China. In China, there's this long-standing idea of Wen, and Wu. Wen stands for like literature, culture, philosophy, all these high-minded ideals. And Wu stands for like martiality and fighting skills and stuff. And way back even in the Zhou dynasty, we have these references to archery rituals where kings would entertain other aristocrats by playing archery games and stuff. And later on, because those kings did it, basically, Confucius also advocated for archery, whereas he, most of the time, most other things like that were very looked down upon by the educated elite. Like, you're not supposed to be violent. That's not productive. That's not good for society. So it's not a good thing. And even Confucius says that, if you have to compete with somebody, if you can't avoid competition and you just want to do it really bad, then compete with archery, because at least in archery, it forces you kind of to be cool and collected. You're not going to be a good archer if you start getting mad and forcing things. Whereas a lot of other martial skills, like wrestling, for example, if you're strong and you're angry, you're pretty intimidating. But an angry archer is one that's not going to perform well. So there's this aspect of, reflection that's present in archery. And because of that, it was more accepted, especially because Confucius says it. After Confucius says it, for the rest of Chinese history, educated elite now have the ability to say, oh, I can do archery because Confucius said it's okay. And what this means is that it's not, I'm not saying that all the elites would do archery or all the educated people were super into it. It would still not be, it's difficult to say, with the percentages and that kind of stuff. But the main thing is that the educated elite at least had an acceptance of this weapon, whereas, things like swords, especially dao, and other more direct, violent weapons were were looked at with disdain and were not accepted. So what this means about archery is that it kind of has this, superpower where it can be written about more than anything else, and it's the most valued martial skill, and it's also accepted by the cultured elites. And because of this, I would argue that archery is probably the most important martial art in Chinese history. I just like to say that there are definitely counter-arguments that can be made, especially about the spear. The spear is super important in Chinese history, but I'm giving the edge to the bow, and if someone disagrees with that, that's totally cool, and I'd love to have a discussion about that. It'd be fun to stir up a little controversy. So thank you all for watching. Please subscribe, and don't forget to stay sharp.